Hi there, it's Iman here at White Lance, and I'm going to take you through the repeating milestones feature that we have. So, this is a contract between a freelancer and a customer, and the freelancer is going to add a repeating milestone. So, we create the title for the milestone. We could say it's an ongoing task, or we could say weekly design work, or we could say consulting each month, or whatever it was to describe it. And instead of choosing an individual milestone, we'll choose the repeating milestone. And in this case, we can set our hourly rate. So I'll say $100 an hour. I'm going to set my maximum number of hours. So here we can choose what is the upper limit that the freelancer is able to submit. So I'm going to say 5 hours. So the most that as a freelancer I could submit every hour, every cycle, is 5 hours times $100. That's a maximum of $500 per cycle. So I can't submit 6, I can't submit 7, I can submit anything from 0 up to 5. And the last selection here is what is the duration of the cycle? Is it a weekly or a monthly contract? So for now I'm just going to say a weekly contract. And I'm going to click add. Now on your marketplace, it may be that it's the customer who's creating the milestone. But for this demonstration, it's the freelancer who's creating it. So now we've created it. You can see all the details are here. And I'm going to go over to the customer side, refresh this page. And here it is. Consulting each month. It's $500. It's 100. Here it's in pounds, £100, maximum of 5 hours, and it's a weekly contract. So now I can, as a customer, I can decide whether or not I'm happy to actually approve this. So I'm going to press start. Now, this is going to officially launch this milestone. And when I press start as a customer, it means that after this point, the freelancer will be able to submit their hours for any work that they do. So let's start that. We get a confirmation. I press start. And that's it. We now have an active, recurring or repeating milestone. So now that both parties have agreed to this, the freelancer is going to go ahead and do some work. Now let's assume it's a few days later and the freelancer has done some work. Maybe it's time for them to submit how many hours they accomplished. Now, given that it's a weekly cycle, the freelancer is able to submit at any point how many hours they did. And they can change that. For example, on Monday, they could say, I did an hour. And then on Friday, they say, well, I've done 2 hours now. And then on Saturday, they say, okay, I've done a total of 5 hours, or however much is updated to. And the only thing to bear in mind is that there is a deadline, which is Sunday at midnight. So at that point, whatever is however many hours have been submitted at that stage will be finalized at that point. So that's a weekly deadline, or if it's a monthly duration, then it's the last Sunday of that month. So now as a freelancer, I'm going to submit hours. So I'm going to try and submit 6. I can't because there's a maximum of 5. So let's submit 5 hours. Or let's say I actually only did 3. So let's say submitting 3 hours, and I did the consulting for Mr. X. Submit. Okay, so I can see in this sort of details box here the note that I did and the submitted hours. And you can see here that we have a deadline. So in this case, it's midnight on a Sunday evening. And the cost is $300. So it's $100 times 3 hours, that's 300. And now the customer will have received an email notifying them about these various different stages, and will certainly notify them about the number of hours that was submitted at the end of the cycle. And it will tell them that as a customer, your freelancer has submitted 3 hours, it's $300. You now have until the following Friday, so 5 business days, to dispute this amount if you want to. The customer doesn't have to dispute it, but for whatever reason, if they were unhappy with the work, they can go and dispute this amount. Now, the dispute button will only appear at the point where the hours have been finalized. So I'm going to trigger that now. So we're now going to assume that Sunday has rolled around and those hours that have been submitted have been cemented. They are the official hours that have been submitted. And the system is going to lock those hours in, enable the customer to dispute those hours if they wish, and it's going to automatically create the next cycle as well for the next week. So let's have a look. There we go. So it's locked in those 3 hours, and we can, if we want, as a customer, dispute that. And it's created the next cycle for the next week. So if you want to learn a bit more about disputing hours, you can head over to our documentation and search for disputed hours. And there's a whole video on how the disputing tool works. But again, the point here is that the customer is able to dispute it if they want at some point before the following Friday. So at this stage, nothing is really happening. It's giving the customer time to decide. Now let's simulate what happens on the following Friday. Okay. So now it's Friday. The customer hasn't disputed anything, and therefore they are automatically going to be charged those $300. And you can see here that has been officially charged. It's listed here as having spent $300. And if we head over to the invoices section, we can see that we have actually, as a customer, been charged these $300. Now, I can pause this milestone. I can also end it. In the case of pausing, you can of course restart it later, whereas if you end it, then it's officially finished and you'd have to recreate a new milestone if you wanted to restart it. In both cases of pausing and ending, the freelancer is still able to submit hours for work done during that cycle. So let's say you decide to pause it or end it on Monday evening, Wednesday evening, Friday evening, any evening really, or any time. The freelancer presumably will have still potentially done some work prior to you pausing or ending it. So they should have the ability to submit the hours that they did during the current cycle. And then after that's been completed, if it's paused or ended, the freelancer can then no longer submit additional hours. So let's go and see on the freelancer side. So we can see here that the $300 have been paid and the next milestone has been started, and then we can go and submit hours for this next milestone. Let's say it's 2 hours. And then the cycle continues. So you can see this one is active and this one has been paid. And that's how repeating milestones work. So if you have any questions, just reach out and I'll be happy to help. Thanks very much for your time and enjoy the repeating milestones.